Most people believe you need millions to buy a company. They're wrong. Imagine sitting across from someone who spent 3 decades building a business from nothing. He quietly places a folder on the table and says, "I'm ready to let it go." Inside that folder is a company worth millions. Inside your bank account is just $90,000. On paper, this conversation should never happen. But sometimes opportunity doesn't arrive because you're the richest person in the room. It arrives because you're the only one willing to keep showing up. That single meeting changes the direction of your life. Not because you own the business, because now you have to figure out how someone with almost no capital can responsibly buy something they could never afford outright. And that question becomes the beginning of everything. Long before there were signed contracts or bank approvals, there was an endless search. Night after night disappeared inside spreadsheets. Hundreds of businesses, thousands of financial numbers, dozens of phone calls that led nowhere. You slowly realize something surprising. Buying a business isn't the hardest part. Finding one that's actually worth buying is. Every owner tells a story. The financial statements tell another. Your job becomes learning which one is closer to the truth. You study income statements. You compare cash flow. You ask questions most buyers never think to ask. Sometimes owners welcome them. Sometimes they end the conversation immediately. Weeks turn into months. Months become nearly a year. Nothing closes, nothing changes, except you. Because every failed conversation teaches you how experienced buyers think. And then one opportunity finally feels different. It looks stable. The customers seem loyal. The profits appear consistent. For the first time, you allow yourself to imagine becoming an owner. Until one simple question changes everything. Who are your biggest customers? The answer lands like a punch. One customer generates more than half of the company's income. Lose that client, and the business could collapse almost overnight. The dream deal suddenly becomes one enormous risk. Walking away hurts. You've already spent months analyzing the opportunity. Lawyers have billed hours. Hope has quietly turned into expectation. But experience whispers something beginners rarely understand. The deals you refuse can protect your future just as much as the deals you accept. So you leave the table, empty-handed, but far wiser than you arrived. And that's when the bigger picture finally comes into focus. The opportunity was never hidden inside one business. It was hidden inside an entire generation. Across the country, thousands of owners are approaching retirement. Many built profitable companies over decades. Many have no family member willing to take over. Some don't even know where to begin looking for the right buyer. Suddenly, the search isn't about chasing one perfect deal. It's about solving a problem that keeps growing every year. That realization gives you a reason to keep going when most people would quit. Months later, another opportunity appears. This time, everything moves faster. The numbers make sense. The customers are diversified. The business has real momentum. Only one obstacle remains. The price is nearly $4 million. You still have only $90,000. That's when you discover how business acquisitions actually happen. The buyer rarely pays the full amount alone. A commercial lender provides most of the financing. The seller agrees to leave part of the payment inside the business, sharing the risk. Trusted investors contribute the remaining capital in exchange for ownership. Piece by piece, the impossible starts becoming possible. Until the final documents arrive. One signature after another. Then comes a page that changes the emotional weight of the entire deal. A personal guarantee. If everything succeeds, you own a company. If everything fails, your personal assets could be on the line. This is no longer just a financial decision. It's a promise backed by your future. Your hand hesitates. Then you sign. The following morning feels nothing like victory. You walk into a building filled with employees who have spent years working together. Most have never heard your name. Some quietly wonder whether you'll destroy everything they helped build. Respect isn't included in the purchase price. It has to be earned. Cash flow stays tight. Every expense matters. Every decision feels expensive. Instead of trying to prove you're the smartest person in the room, you begin listening. You ask veteran employees what slows them down. You remove unnecessary problems. You improve outdated systems one step at a time. Small victories begin stacking together. Customers stay, employees become more confident, margins improve. The pressure slowly begins to ease. Eventually, the company isn't surviving anymore. It's growing. And somewhere during that transformation, you realize something far bigger than owning your first business. You haven't just purchased a company, you've learned a repeatable system, one that could eventually build something much larger than you ever imagined. Most people think the first successful business is the finish line. It's not. It's proof that the process works. The biggest change doesn't happen in your bank account. It happens in your thinking. You stop asking, how do I build one great company? And start asking, how many great companies can the same system support? That's the moment the game changes. Owning one business can create a comfortable life. Owning several, connected by one strategy, can create something much bigger. So instead of celebrating for too long, you begin searching again. This time with experience instead of hope. Each acquisition becomes slightly easier to evaluate. Patterns begin to appear. Strong companies often struggle with the same invisible problems: outdated systems, inefficient administration, and owners doing everything themselves. You don't reinvent these businesses. You organize them. Accounting becomes centralized. Purchasing becomes more efficient. Experienced managers take over daily operations. Each company keeps serving its customers while the shared support system quietly makes every business stronger. Your role changes too. You're no longer solving today's operational problems. You're deciding where tomorrow's capital should go. Money becomes a tool. Time becomes your most valuable asset. The holding company starts taking shape. Then reality reminds you that growth always comes with a larger price. A newly acquired business suddenly loses the people who knew it best. An unexpected departure turns routine operations into confusion almost overnight. Projects slow down. Employees lose confidence. Customers begin asking difficult questions. For the first time since your journey began, the entire structure feels unstable. Every company depends on the others more than you realized. One weak link starts creating pressure across the whole organization. Sleep becomes difficult. Every morning begins with new problems waiting to be solved. This isn't a financial crisis. It's a leadership crisis. Instead of reacting with panic, you focus on people. You identify those who quietly carried responsibility long before anyone noticed. You promote them. You trust them. You build leaders instead of replacing them. Slowly, stability returns. The crisis leaves behind a lesson no business school can teach. Buying companies creates growth. Building capable people creates longevity. Years continue to pass. The holding company expands. One acquisition becomes 5. 5 becomes 10. Then 20. The businesses look ordinary from the outside. Construction, maintenance, manufacturing, service companies, most people drive past without noticing. Nothing glamorous, nothing viral, just dependable businesses solving everyday problems. Together, however, they become something extraordinary. A portfolio valued at roughly $500 million. Not because of one lucky investment, not because of one revolutionary invention, but because small, disciplined decisions were repeated for years without losing focus. Then comes the question almost everyone asks: why not sell? Investment firms begin making offers large enough to change several lifetimes. One signature could turn decades of work into immediate wealth. It's the kind of opportunity most people dream about. For a moment, the temptation feels real. Then your mind returns to the first folder, the first handshake, the first owner who trusted a complete stranger. You remember what this journey was really built on: not flipping businesses, protecting them. So you decline the offers. You choose patience over speed, compounding over cashing out, building over exiting. Years later, you meet that very first owner again. He's older now. Retirement suits him. Over lunch, he finally shares something he never admitted during the negotiations. You weren't the highest bidder. You weren't even close. Other buyers offered more money. Some promised faster closings. Others had larger investment firms behind them. Yet he chose you anyway. Not because of your balance sheet, because of one promise. You said his employees mattered. You said the company would keep growing instead of being dismantled and resold. For him, that promise was worth more than the extra money. In that moment, the entire journey finally makes sense. The businesses were never the real investment. Trust was. Every retiring owner carries decades of sacrifice inside the company they've built. Many aren't searching for the richest buyer. They're searching for someone who will protect what they took a lifetime to create. And that's the opportunity most people never notice. The greatest wealth wasn't created by chasing companies. It was created by becoming the kind of person owners believed in. Because businesses can always be bought. Money can always be borrowed. But trust has to be earned. And sometimes one promise kept is worth much more than another $1 million. That first folder wasn't simply the beginning of a business empire. It was the beginning of a responsibility. The companies, the wealth, and the success all grew from that single decision. Not to buy a business, but to give someone's life's work a future. That's the lesson hidden behind every great holding company. The biggest opportunity isn't just acquiring businesses, it's preserving the people, the purpose, and the legacy that would otherwise disappear forever.